All right, we are live. Happy Friday, everyone. Today is July 18th, and you're hanging out with my community manager, the community built by, for, and managed by community managers. As always, you can chat along with our Twitter chat over at hashtag CMGR Hangout, where some of you are watching. If you love what you're seeing today and have a great idea for a topic or want to join us live someday, hit us up over at mycmgr.com. That's our website. You can click on participate and fill out the form. It's all the great content and ideas and people like you that keep this thing interesting every Friday. So today we're going to be talking about community platforms, a topic I know nothing about. And I thought, boy, if community management isn't keeping you busy enough, choosing a platform sounds like a really overwhelming task. Like, how do you know where to start, and how do you know what to look for? So today, shout out to Sarah Nagel over on Twitter, who's moderating our chat over there, and we'll just start things off with having Sherry introduce herself, and then working our way down the panel.
I always end up being on the far end. We need someone whose name starts after mine. Hey everyone, I'm Sherry Rohde, and I co-produce CMGR Hangout and my CMGR with Brew. And I also lead community and user experience at a company called Rebellion Media. And we actually just launched a community platform today, so this is great timing.
Cool.
I think Jordan, you're next.
Am I next? All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Reeves, current TED Ed Community Manager. Today is actually my last day at TED after 4 years. I'm headed over to National Center for Learning Disabilities. Start there on Monday. I'll be running a new community for them called understood.org. So, news. Thanks for having me today.
On that's awesome.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you.
Dennis, how are you?
I am good, Brew. Thanks for having me. So I am Dennis Shao. I'm with a company called DNN Software. I am handle content marketing at DNN. We are an online community platform, so I can bring the vendor's point of view, obviously without not here to pitch. So I'll be sharing some things from a vendor's point of view, and I actually don't have too much experience selecting an online community platform just because I haven't done it myself. But I'll try to share some input based on what we see from the vendor as a vendor.
Excellent, cool. I'm excited to hear some best practices. So hey, David, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? David Dewald with Thunderhead.com. As far as platforms go, right now I'm on Jive. Prior to that, I was on PHBBB. Prior to that, I was on something else. I've seen quite a few of them over the years, and have had a good chance to be in a situation where we select it for a given platform or a given use. So I hope I have some good insight for you guys today.
Cool.
Sweet.
And my name is Ben Martin, CAE. I'm a certified association executive, and I'm representing Online Community Results, which is actually my firm. I'm the chief engagement officer here. We primarily work with nonprofits and associations, and so we have a client base of about 20 right now. One of our core competencies is selecting an online community platform for an organization. So we work with DNN Corp from Dennis here. We've considered his platform in a number of instances for our clients. And it's just one of the core competencies that we have is helping you to identify your requirements, prioritize them, and then select the right platform for you. So hoping to bring a little bit of experience and expertise to the table.
Ben,
Awesome.
one thing I think...
Oh, go ahead, Sherry.
Oh, I was just going to say one thing I think I forgot to mention to Ben even before this was Crystal, who used to be at Ning, actually told me we needed to have you on here for this topic. So.
Oh, awesome.
Ben, you were talking about kind of that prioritizing, and that really wraps right into our first question for all of you, which is, how do you document, and then how do you prioritize the requirements for a community platform? And is that where you start?
Yeah, so I'll jump in here and say before we even get to requirements and documenting those, we start with strategy. So we like to go through an agile strategy development process with our clients. So basically we'll go in and we'll say, okay, what's the one thing that we can do with your community to start things off, with your private online community to start things off that will help you to get to the next couple of levels of where you want to be with your community software. So we start off with what's one or two things minimum that we can do that will help you get to the next level. We don't like to go out with a huge strategy that says, we are attempting to accomplish these 12 things. What we want to do is say, all right, sure, once we get down the road and we're successful with our one or two things, then we'll get to those. But at the outset, what are the core things that our community needs to accomplish so that we can show success so that we can get our way down to those other things. So with an association or a nonprofit, we usually start with a strategic plan, and we'll say, what can we do better, faster, cheaper, more effectively by using a social technology than we've been able to do up to this point? And then from there, we start developing the requirements and sketching those out. So that's, for us, is the first step.
Cool. Hey, David, how about you? In your past, kind of moving to different platforms, did you guys go through any kind of documentation process, or a lot of meetings up front, or how did that go?
Just in starting, if you're moving from one platform to another, for example, you certainly need to look at what you have, and you need to figure out the best way to get it from point A to point B, and how what you have today is currently organized. I mean, a lot of companies will go in and say, we want to make a community. They already kind of have one. It might be a little bit on social media, a little bit on their website in the comments, and they just want to formalize that in some way and call it a community and invest time in making it grow. It's a matter of looking at what you have, figuring the best way to improve it or make it better, and then finding the platform that kind of fits that need, or that will fit that need, or can be adapted to fit the needs and still be familiar to your users. If it's a radical change, then you're going to have a lot of pushback, but you can work through that as well. But it's certainly taking into account what you have and then seeing how you can move it forward.
Makes a lot of sense. Sherry, I know you said you recently have launched your platform. What did that look like in the beginning?
Yeah, so for us, we were trying to figure out, because we're a blend of actual content and articles and everything, and then the community platform, so how to tie it all together, as well as bringing in our Facebook interactions so that everything just, instead of being like, okay, these are the articles, this is the community, this is our Facebook page, like everything is merged together more to create one unified experience. So that was really important for us.
Cool.
So I'll add one tip that's very much related to what Ben was talking about. And I think this actually relates to the selection of any type of software or solution. And that is, it's pretty simple. It's first of all, define your objectives. What are you looking to do with an online community? And write that down on a piece of paper. So it could be 3, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 2. And share that with your team. So if you have a distributed team, make photocopies and send it around. And everyone on the team, because usually the selection is going to be a team effort, everyone should affix that list of requirements next to where they work, because you always want to refer back to that. Something electronic can get it's easily lost. So as you're selecting a platform and you're looking at features, you always want to point back to that paper and say, does this solution going to be able to meet these things that are listed on the paper? So you always want to refer back to that. And then even when you launch community, you still refer back to that paper and say, are we doing a good job at doing X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, to chase Dennis's comments there, one of the things that we force our clients to do is to prioritize, like strictly prioritize 1 through 30 or whatever it is. Strictly prioritize your requirements, because a lot of software selections that I've seen, it's all just one-dimensional, and clearly not all of your requirements are created equal. So what we do with our clients is we actually force them to prioritize them strictly in order, 1 through whatever. We also do try to keep them to keep their requirements to a somewhat of a minimum. Like if we get above 30 requirements, I start to get concerned about how much focus there is on particular features. So we also, if we have 50 requirements, I'll ask the team, okay, can we combine 2 or 3 of these and put them into one line? And I think, maybe to hear from Dennis, like that really helps with the vendors so they don't have to go, through 120, which I've actually seen, 120 requirements, and kind of assess themselves on that. The other thing we do is once we get them into those orders, we place them into tiers. And so as we go through the process of assessing those features, we'll say, okay, anything in tier number 1 at the top of the list, these features receive 10 points. Anything in the middle receives 7 points, and anything at the bottom receives 4 points. And then further to that, instead of just checking the box to say, okay, this feature meets the requirement, like a yes or no, we'll say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well does this feature meet the requirement? And even if you can compare a feature, let's just say from one forum software or one community software to another, you could say, okay, well, this one does a better job than that one, so I'm going to give this one a 10 and that one a 7. And then basically what we do is we multiply the weight, which is the 10, the 7, and the 4, by the feature assessment, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how well does that meet the requirement? And then every feature gets a score. And then at the bottom of the spreadsheet, it says, all right, well, on paper, the scores say that this platform is, received 1,000 points, this one got 900, and that one got 800. So on paper, the one with 1,000 points is the ideal solution. But then, that's just a tool to inform your decision making. We always say you've got to do more than just look at the numbers. Like, there's service to be considered. There's maybe some kind of ethic behind the software company that you like better than another. Maybe it's you prefer a PHP vendor compared to a .NET or vice versa. So that's our process. Actually, Sherry, we have a spreadsheet that we've developed that I'm happy for anybody watching the Hangout to just take with them. I don't know if you can chat that out, or I can do that after the Hangout here. I think I shared that with you, but it's basically a smart checklist, and it's got all the instructions. This is the very same checklist that we use with our clients, so I'll just offer that up as a freebie.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is that the one you shared with me in the email?
Yeah, it's a bit.ly URL. I think it's like bit.ly.com/smartcheck.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share that out now for everyone.
Awesome.
Of the point you kind of made about making sure that there's not too many features or too many requirements that you're looking at. Back in my kind of software architecture days, we ran things very agile for the reason that you didn't want to get caught up in what we called analysis paralysis, right? Where it's sort of like, yeah, this, you just knew, oh man, this project is bound to die if I really take on all of this all at once as my priorities. And it's just critical to be able to say what is accomplishable in a short amount of time, and then from there, let's move on to our next iteration and define a new set of priorities. So, Dennis, did you have anything to add to that, or Jordan? Kind of to the priority requirements and community, or the priority and the requirements?
I'll just kind of tell a quick story about what happened with TED, and that is we honestly didn't have a formalized list of priorities in the beginning for why we needed a community. It was just kind of a given. We needed some place for the people who are using our content regularly to go and discuss how they were using it, why they were using it, but also as a matter of the nature of what we do. We produce content that teaches, not content that's about education. So the community was one place where people could come to TED-Ed and talk about the education world at large. So it filled a need that was somehow missing. And as far as the platform goes, our list of priorities was pretty short. It was just, can people come here and discuss things that are important to them? So we should have, arguably, started with that list of priorities, but now we have a year and a half of community platform under our belt. So just kind of practicing with this year and a half, we've been able to see what is most important to us and build that list of priorities. The challenge is that now that we have this year and a half with the platform that we've been using, we've realized that there are things that we desire in our community that it would have been nice to start with in the beginning, because now we have to move everything over to a new platform, or at least ask for custom engineering or those kinds of things. So I think we have some advantages starting with no lists of priorities, but I think the challenges are also a bit challenging.
So Jordan, let me ask you this: those things that you mentioned, were those things that do you believe if you sat down with a document you would have thought right away, oh my gosh, we definitely need this, or is that just something that happened once you gained the experience of having that community and having that platform?
I think had we delved a little bit deeper into some documents, if we had educated ourselves a little bit better in the beginning, perhaps we would have considered a platform that was a little bit more robust. And we've been really happy with the solution so far. It's just now we're outgrowing it a little bit. But I do think, yeah, we would have considered more options. But like I said at the time, our priority was just a place for conversation. So given the experience, we've realized that this could actually be something a lot bigger, potentially a lot better, and do a lot more for our initiative altogether. So that's why we're considering moving to something different.
Yeah, and I think moving to a different platform just sounds like possibly part of the evolution of a community platform.
Sure.
You know, not all communities starting out, you know, need the granddaddy Porsche. Sometimes like a Chevy Nova is all right, and then you can move your way up or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's probably some learnings that happened in the simpler platform that wouldn't have happened otherwise. I actually really appreciate the fact that we had a platform that lacked the bells and whistles, so that we've got really good at fostering an environment for quality conversation. And that was what was front and center. That was key. And a lot of really strong relationships were forged in this community that was all about what you said and not necessarily about the badges that you had or the amount of lessons that you created or completed. It was really just about the conversation. So we hope to keep that part intact and then just kind of layer on some of the things that we've realized could be priorities for us. So I'm glad that it happened the way that it did.
Yeah, so one counterpoint to that I've seen from my clients is anytime that there's a change from one community platform to another, it's a ton of, first of all, it's a ton of work. You may be moving from one platform to another that they don't talk well to each other. There really aren't standards around community stuff, so it's not like, hey, just pick up these forums and move them over to this new platform. So I mean, it's stressful, it's a lot of work, and then you also probably know from your involvement with, you know, any social network that anytime there's a change to Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, like everybody goes apeshit. So like you've got to keep things consistent for your members, because when you make that change, it's going to affect the user experience. It's going to affect people's opinion. So, you know, my point of view with it for my clients is let's start simple, but maybe start with a robust tool and turn off a bunch of features so that down the road we can open up the circle and provide more features down the road, but not substantially alter the user experience.
Where were you 2 years ago? Gosh.
Sorry about that. We'll talk after the hangout here as you're moving on to your new org.
Sounds good.
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
All right, so let me jump us right over to question 2, and we talked about this a little bit as we talked about prioritizing requirements. We talked about also kind of prioritizing different features, but like, what features do you look for in a community platform? As you talked about, hey, we didn't have things we needed, but then now we do. So what are the features, and then frankly, how do you assess them?
Honestly, the one feature that nobody thinks about right off the bat is reporting. It is so important that you have a platform that has some kind of robust reporting built in, or at least the hooks so that you can get reporting out. You know, if you got somebody in the org that likes to talk ROI, they're going to want to see numbers, and you've got to be able to produce something. And it's not something in the user's face, it's all in the back end, but it's so important to be able to pull data out and being able to say, you know, this is the valuable conversations that are happening. These are the people that are valuable to us because they produce so much, and being able to peer into that world and bring it and pull it out and show it to other people.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a quick question on that, David. Is other than ROI, what are some of the other important reasons you should consider with the type of reporting that might be in the platform?
You can actually see trends happen. So if you have a pretty robust platform and you start to notice a lot of traffic coming in for a particular country, you might consider adapting your community to have a stronger presence for that country and possibly that language. You might be able to see areas of your site that are not performing that it may be better to do away with simply because nobody likes to go to a party where there's nobody there. You can also use it to possibly see health issues within the community. Sure, a lot of people are showing up, but not very many people are posting, and fewer still are replying. So you can start to look and say, well, maybe my message is wrong, or maybe the way we're presenting it isn't as engaging as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, David just hit on one of my soapbox issues, which is this is one of my standard phrases to my clients is you need to be prepared for the day when the powers that be come and ask you what's the ROI of what we're doing. And I think the next question beyond that, you can't answer the question in dollars and cents. What's the ROI of your continued employment here? So I bang on my clients consistently you need to be able to, at the very least, show that your community is accomplishing the objectives that it's set out to achieve. But if you can get to dollars and cents ROI, which is tough to do, but if you can get there, then you can put the dollars and cents in front of the controller's face and say, look, here is the value that we're providing. And that can be really difficult to get to, but it actually kind of leads me to one of my features that I think you ought to be looking into, which is a way to tie your online community into your CRM so you can better understand how engagement in your community is leading to more product purchases, better customer loyalty, any kind of positive business outcome that the powers that be are going to be looking for. Like, you need to be serious about that kind of stuff and look for it in your own community platform. So that's one of the platform requirements that I would look for.
That's awesome, Bennett.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, like, even, you said that even if it's hard, I would say that even if you have to, just get the CRM team to put in a field for you for a username of forum member or whatever, and you just work a few hours, every week, trying to make as many matches as possible. I think that's a great idea, and it's not always easy. It's not always like, cool, there's this SOAP protocol that connects the two. Sometimes there's manual stuff involved, and you just got to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of the other hidden features that I think every community manager should be looking for in a platform is email notifications. We see that probably 75 to 90% of all engagement in an online community is initiated by an email notification hitting an inbox somewhere. Those notifications can sometimes be very rudimentary, but the more you can pull people in to the community by way of an email notification, the more engagement you're going to see. I know, David, you've got a ton of experience with communities. I'd love to hear, like, what's your take on email notifications and how they apply in your work?
Yeah, email notifications are good. Anything that points out interesting happenings in your community. If your software doesn't do it automatically or automagically, you should probably do it yourself. I know, 15 years ago, forum softwares might tell you that you got a reply. It might not. But if you wanted to give an overview of the greater happenings in the community, you had to manually write an email and send it out. And that's what we would do. We would just go through and find the conversations or the interesting things and wrap it up and say, you might have missed this past week. A lot of the more modern software is doing that for us automatically, so we don't have to do it. I think that more importantly than them getting the email is giving them the ability to limit how often they get it, giving them those controls, because if you pester the hell out of them, they're not going to come, and they're just going to shut you out completely.
Yep.
I would much rather them come to my community and say once a week than for them to go into Outlook and say, go to spam. So that would be my only thing with that.
Yeah, and then my last feature that I think is kind of an afterthought for a lot of folks is mobile. And when we do demos with the software providers, we're always looking at the desktop experience. But mobile sends more traffic to websites now than it ever has before, and I believe it's now over 50%. So a mobile experience is essential. It doesn't have to be a native app. It could be a responsive or adaptive design, but we always look at mobile as being one of the most important things to consider with an online community.
Yeah, mobile was very important to us when we were setting up ours, for sure.
And I think it's going to just get more and more so.
And what I would add is we've talked about a lot of interesting features. I think what it's pointing out to me is that as the selector of a platform, I would categorize these features into, I can think of 3 different categories. One would be user-facing, so you want to look at all the different features that would allow users to engage, things like what are the different tools, as well as what are the mechanisms built into the platform that encourage further interaction, things like points and badges, leaderboards, and the like. The second category I would think of is for the community manager. So you want things, as Ben and David were saying, email notifications. You want moderation tools. You want to make their life easier so they can do things more efficiently. And the third category would be you as the business owner or the ambassador of the community. You want as we're talking about ROI, you want to get the right data to know if what the ROI is. And then data is like a little intersection between business owner and community manager. What the community manager should be doing is all data-driven to manage that community. So you got to make sure the data can be exposed to the community manager.
I have a comment. It's not necessarily a feature that I look for, but it's something that I would love to exist. So it seems like the reporting tools, the analytics that are built into platforms are not necessarily interactive. So they report things to me, and I can compare those to the goals that I have in an Excel sheet or Google Doc that I share with my team or whatever. But I always have to swap between my reports and my Excel or my Google Doc. I think it'd be cool if there was some way for us to interact with the reporting tools and say, okay, by the end of this quarter, I want to be here. And then my reporting tools are just going to update me maybe once a week on the progress that I have automatically, so I don't have to necessarily go and search within those reporting tools to see how I'm doing and compare back and forth between my records that are off of the platform and the tools that are on the platform. I feel like somebody wanted to say something. I heard a breath.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the platforms nowadays are starting down that road. It's just gotten to the point where larger companies are starting to jump on board with this community thing, and reporting, of course, is very important to the people that write the checks. So more and more, I've seen platforms pick this up where they have tools on the back end that will at least show you the reporting. And I think as time goes on, we're going to have more and more robust platforms where the reporting becomes almost as important as the front end that the customers are using. I'm on Jive. Jive actually has a pretty good reporting on the back end. It has hooks so that you can buy a more robust package from an outside vendor that can actually dig in really deep and probably provide those kind of automated things. But so far, no company has really integrated it all into one that I'm aware of.
So I know a particular platform pretty well, and there's actually got a feature in a recent release. It's called in-context analytics. So the notion is, if you're visiting, as the community manager, if you're visiting a section of the community, let's call it ideas or questions, there's what's called the community manager experience, which is this navigational element to the left that only community managers get to see, and it provides you with the analytics in context. So if you're in ideas, you can bring up the analytics for that section of the community, right? It's overlaid right on top of the community. You can then minimize that to go back to that area of the community.
Very cool. I had one more question for you guys. So one thing that I think we've struggled with a little bit in reporting is that one conversation that has any activity whatsoever we view as somewhat of a success. So our our goals from the get-go were never, we want to scale the community to 1 million users a week by the end of the year. We never had a number in mind. It really was just that we wanted a place for conversation to happen. So chances are that we were actually paying more than we were making. So our return on investment, we weren't really sure how to calculate that necessarily. So I guess my question for you guys is, how do you say, if you have the features that will report the metrics that you need, even if they're like reporting that you're doing great, but you don't have goals in mind for numbers. We don't sell a product. We don't necessarily have a business, unless you can say spreading ideas is a business. So it's really just about a place for conversation. How do you decide what metrics to look at, or what to report, or what to take to your stakeholders? What features do you need to do that?
Yeah, so we go back to the strategy for the community and say, all right, this is the strategy that we're trying to accomplish. All right, and so if our strategy is all around having conversations, then we want to track things about discussion posts. How many new discussion posts, how many replies to discussion posts, how quickly are discussion post replies coming in, and those kinds of things. If it has more to do with sharing files and resources, we'd say how many uploads, how many downloads, and those kinds of things. So we always try to align the metrics with what the outcome that we have in mind for the community is. Another one of our tips that we give to clients is when you're early on in your community, and this is a little bit of a departure from the platform here, but this is a technology that everybody has access to, is screen captures. So like Jordan, to your point, if you've got members in your community who are exchanging ideas and you're at the outset and you don't, maybe your numbers aren't great yet, take the screenshots and say, hey boss, remember this was our strategy to get people to exchange ideas. Here are 14 screenshots from last month that show how one user helped another. And so that kind of stuff helps to tell the story of how your community is succeeding, even if you're at the very beginning of your community experience and you don't necessarily have great numbers to show.
That's great. Thanks.
I love that, Ben. You know, I always say like you gotta screenshot all the epic shit, because that's the way you tell everybody else all the awesome that happens when you're watching. You know.
Yep, definitely.
So guys,
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just
I'm one of those people that I share links all the time. So if I have a really great conversation going on, we're more of a support community where I am right now, and if I see a support case where I have a support member that is just doing an outstanding job of trying to help somebody, I will kind of pass that along to somebody and say, this is a great conversation going on, and they're doing a great job trying to figure this out, and it's that kind of thing, so that they get some other way of connecting with it as well. Screenshots are great, but they're of the moment. Conversations can go on after they go, but certainly sharing links to internal people to let them know that, hey, there's a conversation you might want to take a look at, even if it's not necessarily something that they can talk to or talk about. It's certainly good, hey, the customer said great things about your stuff, I thought you would want to know, kind of a thing.
Yeah, totally. So, guys, what are the pros and cons between enterprise solutions, and I have to say it the way it's typed just because it'll be funny, hosed solutions. That's like the friggin' hilarious typo ever. Hosted solutions.
Sorry.
No, hey, typos happen, Sherry, but hosed solutions just sounded really funny to me. So I was like, what does she mean by that? Like the stuff that's screwed up? Oh, no, hosted. So what is the pros and cons between enterprise, hosted, and open source? Which really, so I mean, is enterprise also hosted or self-hosted? I guess help somebody who understands this stuff a little bit more than I do. Help me understand. Like I would think open source maybe comes hosted. Maybe I have to host it. What's kind of the difference between the three, and then what are the pros and cons?
I think depending on the platform, it can be all three. So you can have an on-prem with whatever software you're using, they might also offer cloud hosting, and they might also offer something slightly different that's just a more traditional hosting where you buy space. If you look at like Vanilla, for example, use that forum software, you can use it through them, or you can download it yourself and do it yourself. It just depends. I think most platforms are trying to be as flexible as possible to make sure they get as much money out of us as they possibly can, which is, fine and good. They're to make money as well.
Yeah, I agree with David. Like, it can be all three. So like one that I'm familiar with is like Open Atrium, which is based on the Drupal platform. That's just a distribution, but you can self-host that if you want, or you can host it with them. But I think, generally speaking, what we look for, or how we draw the distinction is, if you're going with an enterprise solution, you're going to pay for it. Even if it's an open source enterprise solution, like Open Atrium is, you're either going to pay them to customize it for your use, or you're going to pay a third party to customize it for your use. So an enterprise solution is going to cost. We typically try to steer our clients towards enterprise solutions for a couple of reasons. One is, you've got a company standing behind the product. You're not necessarily relying on the community esoterically to take care of you. So you've got some customers that are also providing feedback to that enterprise community platform. So you get the benefit of the innovation that comes along from the other customers' feature requests. That's a huge benefit that we see for our clients, but in selecting an enterprise platform. We have had a couple of folks be real serious about going open source and doing it all themselves, and we've seen them through that process. But by and large, we like the enterprise route. Again, it's in a lot of ways more stable. You have some continuity behind them. You're going to pay for it, but if you're serious about community, then we think you ought to put your money where your mouth is.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would add, as far as pros and cons, a lot of it's going to translate between what is the context of your community and what are you willing to spend for the platform. So if there's an enthusiast community and you're very passionate about Tesla cars, then an open source, free or low cost forum works really well for you. But if you're a brand and you're actually driving revenue from a community and it's key to your revenue growth, then I think an open source free platform may not, let's say there's something goes wrong, it's not supported, that's going to be an issue for you if you're driving revenue. So there's a case where the revenue can really justify a certain spend on the platform. So a lot of cases, if you're looking at enterprise, hosted versus non-hosted isn't really relevant to what I'm saying, but enterprise versus open source and free, it's just the balance between what is the value or even the business use of the community versus what are you willing to spend for it.
I will say along with that too, we just launched on Vanilla today. I forgot to say earlier what platform we were using. I talked about it before we went on air. But with that, we were looking at hosted versus open source. And really what it came down to is it wasn't the cost, because we knew either way we had a large chunk of our dev time and design time invested in it. And so that is a cost, whether or not you factor that in when you're just comparing costs of the platforms. But for us, it was more, we had some pretty cool tech we wanted to do that we couldn't actually hack the hosted solution to do. So because of that, we went with open source, so we could really modify it to do the seamless integrations and pulling in from Facebook as well. And just there was a lot of little things that we wanted to work together that we would not have been able to do with Vanilla guarding the code. So.
Yeah, but I think for me, the bottom line is, you're going to pay one way or the other, right? Like, Sherry says they've got dev time invested in their platform. It's open source, and they can do whatever they want with it, but there's man hours involved in that. With a hosted or enterprise solution, they do a lot of that work for you, but you're still paying for it. So, I mean, to me, it's almost like two sides of the same coin, except for in the instance that Dennis mentioned, which is if you're just starting up a community and you have no money to spend, then clearly these open source solutions or the free or cheap solutions that are out there are generally the way to go.
But isn't open source, if I don't have a budget, isn't open source still tough because it's going to require like installation, hosting, hopefully I have some smart staff who know how to install stuff. Is that often the case, or I know I saw on Vanilla they had this cloud version, so is that still open source but somebody else is running it for you, kind of like WordPress? Is that how that works? Does
I'll
anybody
have to
know?
defer to Sherry on that one. I'm not sure of that answer.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by Twitter. Can you repeat
It's
that?
okay. Yeah, Brew, I think their cloud it's the open source stuff, but it's also with Vanilla you also get their new features that are in development on the cloud platform before the open source does. So, or at least
You
that was the
do, but
case.
at the same time, sometimes there's features available on their open source platform because users have made plugins that are not yet available on cloud.
Yeah, that's the trade-off.
So almost exactly like WordPress, then, probably, right?
Yeah.
Like sort of a horse to piece, whether you want to host it yourself or not.
Yeah, it's not super clear. It goes back to knowing what your objectives are and what features are most important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Brew, which is on open source, there's a difference between open source that's developer-oriented, so you download it as a developer and you integrate it and you might even build on top of it, versus open source that's prepackaged. I know there's different software that's got different models. I think for community managers, aside from those who happen to be coders as well, we're probably looking for open source that's prepackaged, or we might pay for a vendor to integrate or resell to us their services. But I think it's a good point that open source sometimes does mean that you have to get a little bit hands-on under the covers.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got some clients who are running Drupal communities. Like they basically hacked their Drupal website to act like a community. And once the person who's done that development has moved on, then they're stuck with this pile that they don't really know what to do.
Pile's a good word.
Yeah, so that's a risk that you run. That's why we kind of tend to move towards the enterprise solutions, because people do change jobs, and so you develop something custom, and even if it's not even a bespoke solution like built from the ground up, but it's built on top of Drupal or WordPress or whatever, typically it becomes a pile that was somebody's baby, and then once they move on, you're kind of stuck with the baby, and you don't really know what it likes to eat.
You're the baby daddy.
I just did my hosting company offers a lot of one-click installs of a lot of stuff, and just on a quick look, I've seen 2 forum platforms that you can just click and it'll install it for you. So I mean that would be zero work on your part to get a very basic forum in place. They also offer the big WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, PHP, looking at these real quick. Simple Machine Forums is in there, so that's a third forum software. Vanilla is in here. So yeah, depending on your hosting company, even if you're using open source, it may be something simple to get installed, but if you want a custom theme, then you're going to have some work involved.
Yeah.
Unless you can find one that you can just buy and drop that really fits your needs. But even then, you're going to want to do some minor customization.
Well, so let's move on to this platform provider question, which is what questions should you be asking when talking to a platform provider? So what are some of the important things? And it would be interesting, Dennis, I guess maybe let's start with you on like what are the things that you think are important that people should be asking?
Sure. So it's kind of, I was laughing or smiling because it's kind of like, what question should I ask myself? But I think there's one.
What questions have you heard?
Yes, I will tell you. Well, I'll share with you one angle that I think goes under asked, which is we talk a lot about features, requirements, a lot of different technical aspects. I think one thing that is not asked enough is more on the customer experience side, things like, is there a cultural fit between my organization and the vendor's organization? If you're a 20-person company, maybe a Fortune 100 corporation might not be a good fit compared to a smaller organization. So I think a lot of times it's you, as even your team as the community managers, are going to be calling on a vendor for technical support. You want to assess, do I think I can work well with these folks? You'll probably get a sense for that during the sales process, even with the salesperson from a vendor. So it's hard for me to translate that into specific questions, but I think you can get the idea as to baking this into your process as to the cultural fit between your two organizations.
Yeah, one thing we recommend to all of our clients is with respect to the whole sales process, every time you select any kind of software, you're usually doing demos. And one of the things that we encourage our clients to do is take control of the demo process because the people who do these demos have very good scripts, and some of them are better than others. But we think that if you use the spreadsheet that I talked about earlier, where you line up all your features with the scores and the weights and all that, and if you use that as your agenda for the demo and give it to the vendor and say, look, I'm not interested in your standard sales pitch. What I want to see is how does your platform meet the requirements that we've already outlined? Like, we know what we want to do. We have our strategy. We have our requirements documented. We know which ones are more important than others. Show me, how does your platform do these 25 or 30 things or whatever they are? And use that as your agenda for the demo. And then say, okay, look, if you can get through our requirements, then razzle-dazzle us with your standard presentation. But we want to see how your platform can meet our requirements. So that's one of the big things that we hammer home with our clients, is say, take control of the demos. Don't let them give you the standard spiel. Make them show you how their platform meets your needs.
I think something, go ahead, Ben.
I had my piece. I said my piece. You go ahead.
One thing that's really important for us is that I have zero technical skills. I'm still honestly not really sure where the off button is on my computer. It's pretty sad at times. But I think my skill set lies in connecting with people, hence I'm a community manager, right? But I rely on people who are technically inclined to make those moves and adjustments with the software as needed. But when those people aren't around and I have an issue, I need to be able to go in and do it too without knowing HTML. Or, I mean, I can drag and drop things as needed, but the members of my team that do know HTML may prefer that system. So it'd be nice if there was a platform that gave you the option how you want to modify your platform. But more importantly, a question that I would ask before I decided on a solution was, how readily available is your staff going to be to help me when my technical staff is unavailable to help? I've talked to a couple of people that say one day a month we just plan on calling you and being completely available. We're at your disposal to walk through any things you have trouble with, or to make changes, custom engineering, those kinds of things. I thought that was pretty unheard of. For someone to give a whole day out of every month just for your platform, but that's what really impressed me. The rest of their platform could have been, terrible, but the fact that they were willing to work on what I needed most was important, seeing as how I am technically incapable of just about anything.
Another question that we encourage clients to ask is, what's the financial position of this company? Like, are you venture backed? Are you profitable? Do you have any ideas or any notion of being acquired at some point in the future? So those are questions that we'll ask our clients to ask the prospective vendors.
All right, I'm going to jump in here and ask a question we got online from William. He's like, silly question time. You know what, William? No questions are silly on this Hangout. We're all here to learn. So he says, how many good community platforms are there? And so I would love, because we can definitely make sure we capture this in the blog recap. I'd love if all of you can just rapid fire off some platforms that come to mind for you.
Vanilla is a forum software. PHPBB, if I stick with forums, okay. Vanilla, Simple Machine, Forums, PHPBB. There's some other ones that are paid. Those are some of the free ones, but I've not really worked with them. Enterprise level, there's Jive, there's DNN Corp. I'm drawing a blank. Someone jump in and help me. I'm
There's
sinking.
Ning. I don't know where that follows, and I've not had experience with them.
Yeah, Ning is kind of a hosted kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm going to chat into the window here a link. This is not an exhaustive list by any means, but I just went ahead and chatted it out. There's about
Cool, I'll tweet it.
or so platforms listed here. Jeremiah Oyang has a pretty exhaustive list. So this is just the forum softwares that we work with and the community software that we've worked with, but it's, again, not exhaustive. And in fact, I don't think I've updated it in probably 3 or 4 months. But
Yeah, I couldn't think of lithium. That was the one I was trying to remember.
Yeah, so some of these are actually out of date because like Zimbra and Intelligent just recently merged. So, but anyway, that
.NET Nuke is still around.
Sure is.
Is Fowler a community platform as well, right?
Yeah. I think it's more groups than a community platform. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
True.
We've been really happy with Get Satisfaction. One thing that I really like about them is they have, so they host lots of communities, like they host the community for TED Ed, but they also have a support community of their own that is ginormous. I've never had a problem where I couldn't figure out an answer just by posting on their support community. They're really great in that way.
Yeah, I've got a client right now where we're modeling their community experience on Get Satisfaction.
Awesome. So, and if we think of anything else, maybe we can start a little internal email thread. And all right. So, last question of the day here is: how can social media and community platforms work in tandem? And I'm actually really curious about this because I do not have any experience, like I said before, on the actually doing community principles on a platform. For me, community's always been built, utilizing the principles of community management, but within, kind of different social media platforms. So let's talk about how they can work in tandem.
I know that I think just about every platform out there now has social sharing kind of baked in, or if it's not baked in, it's the #1 add-on. So at least getting information from the community out to social media is relatively easy. Depending on the platform, they may have tools to help you pull in social media to your platform. I know that at least with the one I work with, they've got tools where I can pull in Twitter feeds, I can pull in RSS feeds, I can pull in Facebook. In fact, Facebook's really well integrated into what they're doing. We're not using it so much, but they do have a really good Facebook integration. I can't think of any platform that doesn't have some way of at least making it easy to share. It's getting that information from Twitter in a way that's presentable. I mean, Twitter has their own tools to help you do that, but they're usually small and they're not very detailed and they're not easy to customize. So.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just use like an add this or share this, you can just embed that into pretty much any kind of forum or community software that you've got out there. And I know different people have different approaches to this one, and because our practice is so much focused on private communities, we view your online community as kind of like your home on the web, and we encourage our clients to think of Facebook and Google Plus and LinkedIn as like their outposts or their listening posts, but also as a place where they can post like an invitation to come to your party at your online community. So to that end, we encourage our clients to curate their own content within their community and then post that out onto Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and Google Plus as a way to draw people into your community and host the party at your place. And I know there's different schools of thought on that, but again, we feel like if you're going to invest that much money,
you've got the right one.
Then
bring
them to your place.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Absolutely, that's yeah. You go where they are and you tell them to come home.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. Like there's a lot of debate about it right now, but when we see like your organic reach just plummeting in Facebook, we say, look, if you want people to actually see your stuff, like get them subscribed to your forum, get them subscribed to your community, and you have a better chance of getting your message through that way than relying on EdgeRank or something to like somehow
And
maybe
control the
magically.
data,
Yeah,
and
and that's another
you
huge thing.
control the numbers, and you can adapt to fit the needs of your customers instead of them adapting to whatever the platform throws at you.
Yeah, I
Just a
mean, so you're
million reasons why.
yeah, your earlier report on, or your earlier point on reporting, like you're not going to get the same level of reporting from Facebook that you're going to get from a Jive or from a Lithium or Small World Labs, Higher Logic, any of these enterprise grade platforms.
Yeah, so let me ask you guys this question: Is it a special type of person who hangs out on these types of community or forum platforms? Because part of the thing that I struggle with in my mind is every day I already am struggling for my own personal time between keeping up on just like a handful of platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And so I personally don't have time to also be sucked into another platform. And so I mean, is it a special, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like what are these really your most passionate people that are saying, hey, I already got all this stuff coming at me, but I'm also going to give you more of my time as the brand or the service or the community that I love. Do you find less stragglers? That I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I'm just really
Well, I mean,
curious.
the people that you get to go from social media to your site are certainly more invested than, you've kind of already made the sale. If you want to put it in a salesy way, you've gotten their attention enough. They're like, I would like to find out more, and you can pull them away from social media, which is a constant flood of new information. You've made your pitch enough to get them in the door, and now you can settle down and really talk to them on one-on-one and build that relationship. Um, and I think it's going to be based on the needs of the person too. Facebook is a lot of drive-bys. Oh, look, I can like this and get free tokens. I can like this and maybe win an iPad. I can like this, and they hit it once and they never go back. Whereas if you can confine that content that says, hey, you could really use this information, and here's a little bit of it, but I got a whole lot more over here. You should come check it out. Then they become part of the secret club, and that will help move them along.
Yeah, well, I think that's the big aha for me during this whole discussion is that, especially let's circle all the way back to the beginning when we talk about ROI, is that, if I have somebody who's more than just a light or one-time user in my invested community, I mean, those people are hugely valuable. Because they are people that would be my like super kind of fans out in the social media world. They're actually willing to spend time with me in my own house versus just like, hey, we'll talk at the party, if that makes any sense, right? And so when you think ROI, it's like, I would almost kick out your one time or light users saying like, well, of course there's good information here, they're going to come here, but anyone who's heavy, like the dollar value on those types of people are probably the people that you can't even rarely find in social. Those are like your super fans that annoy the hell out of you probably in social, right? Like, oh, every day they wake up and say hi to us and everything else, but those are perfect people for kind of these standalone platforms.
I think as with anything, it really depends on the nature of your community, obviously, but with ours, like ours are health condition focused, and we've actually had a lot of people requesting a place for them to be able to talk with each other and talk about their own topics and everything, not even knowing that we had this in the works. So it just, in a lot of cases, it's actually just needed, but it depends too. Like, it's obviously not going to be the perfect solution for everything.
It's also, Brew, a matter of what's in it for them. Like to get somebody to go off of Twitter and spend time in your community, sometimes they have a need. So it could be a customer community, and their Sonos player is not streaming, so they go into the Sonos community, and they ask a question, or they search for the question. Other times it might be you're going into community for to get endorphin hits, meaning you like getting retweets and mentions on Twitter, because that's what sometimes, for some people, that's what keeps you glued to your interactions tab. And sometimes in community, you've got some hero status or a badge, and you want to go back into that community to maintain it.
That's awesome.
I also think that in our case, we've she won't mind that I share her name. Della Palacios has been with us for over a year now, as we call her our community champion. And she started off as what we called a casual user or a drive-by, someone that just kind of came in and shared something randomly. And then she said she was learning so much from the interactions that she kept coming back over and over. And now she's like a volunteer moderator, full-time status, and she does bring that value that we can't really calculate. And she often has access to resources that we would never have found otherwise. So she brings in this really valuable perspective. But I think there's a group of people that come to the community because there are people like Della, and then Della comes to the community because there's a group of people that need her and want her. So there's like a reciprocal relationship between the drive-bys and the experts. At least that's what we found so far.
Yeah, cool.
Build your reputation by helping others build theirs.
What was that again, David?
I said build your reputation by helping other people build theirs.
What a great way to end today's conversation in Hangout. So thanks, guys. This was super fascinating to me, and definitely opened up my thought for our clients. So thanks for hanging out with us, everybody watching. Don't forget, you can hang out every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you next Friday. Oh, Sherry, what's going on next Friday, by the way?
Next Friday, we're talking about community management at an agency. And also a quick note to anyone, if you haven't already seen my post, if you want Google Plus notifications whenever Hangout invites are posted, you need to fill out the form that's posted on the MyCMGR page, because I'm not going to be inviting all of the circles anymore starting August 1st.
So that's important if you want to be reminded about this awesomeness. Fill out the form, mycmgr.com. All right, happy Friday, guys. See you next Friday.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, thanks.